Hour of authentic news right here on RBN Live this 23rd day of April 2025. I have no callers yet. So if you want to take the opportunity, tune in. Meanwhile, I want to introduce you to 9/11. There's so much going on here, and I'm very pleased with Ron Johnson's effort to get at the truth. I'll be glad to share a part of my 9/11 special. Now, now we have a couple of callers here. Go right ahead, JP from Chicago. Join the conversation, JP.
Hey, Jim, I'll be brief. I just want to back up what you had to say about that weaponization of the judicial system in Wisconsin. It's very real. It's in full effect. And this is the backstop of the deep state. And if you look back at Woodrow Wilson, you know, he did start the Federal Reserve and the income tax, but also these judges, this judicial system. That's the third branch. That's their backstop. And for everything Trump's doing, they're doing countermeasures. And Obama, even what's his face from New York, Schumer said that, you know, we got 6 ways of Sunday getting you, you know, with the intelligence agency. Yeah. And then he came out, right? And then he came out and said, hey, you know, we got these judges in there, Obama-appointed judges, and you're going to have to deal with them. And then look at the Supreme Court, for God's sake. I mean, they don't even know what a woman is. So I've been in the trenches with you, brother. I know what you're going through. But to switch gears, get away from that negativity, that Senator Johnson, I also met him at the Capitol at a Tea Party meeting. I shook his hand. He's a tall, good-looking man with bright blue eyes, and I got to say, he's fighting for us. And I really... And that 9/11 thing.
He is terrific, JP. I'm a huge fan of Ron Johnson.
You should talk to him about 9/11 because you got tons of evidence. And just to back you up, and people could do the research. And Jesse Ventura, my relative, Jack Clunan, was an FBI agent. He was a lead terrorist investigator during 9/11, and he was shut down. And he went to Jesse Ventura at the same time you did. Now, they scrubbed a lot of these videos. I downloaded some of them before they got scrubbed. But he's out there, Jack Clunan. You could look him up. Truth, you know, fact check me if you want. But the problem with this happened is that his life was threatened, and he had to leave the country. A lot of men were threatened and whacked to cover up that Bibi and the Mossad were definitely involved with that, especially planting those pre-explosives. So, this is great news, Jim. I think you'd be a great witness. What do you say about that?
I'm reaching out to him to lend my support. I'm already on it, JP. I'm with you 100%. I'm going to do everything in my power to aid and abet this investigation.
If you want Jack's help, now he could be a good whistleblower. He's living in London. He works for a private intel company there. I could give you his contact information if you want, but he's an actual...
Write me about it, JP. Do that. That's a good idea. Do it.
Okay. And then religion and politics, I won't go into the Pope too much, but I got to say, he was a damn commie, man. Everything he pushed was to allow all these Muslims into Europe, the Catholic Charities is what was on the ground in Panama. It was Catholic Charities giving them the maps, giving them contraception. And then once they got here, it was Catholic Charities shipping them around, shipping them to Chicago. And I'm at the front line here, Jim. I got to say, I disagree with you on this one. These globalists have been working. Obama and that Pope were together. They're both in that global homo network. And they were trying to bring this country down by clower and pivot, by wrecking the social service systems. And they did it. They did it. There's like 20 million of them here in this city. They've taken over the whole South Side. I've witnessed young girls die of fentanyl because they thought they were doing coke. You know, in the old days, you could go out, have fun, whatever. But now you go out, have fun, you end up dead. And this is what they're doing. And they've been working with the communists in Mexico. And that Shine Bomb is a card-carrying communist. So these gangbangers that bring these drugs in, they're all working together with the globalist communists. And that's the big picture. I don't know if you see it or you just don't want to talk about it, but that's where the Obama and the Pope come together. And these deep state judges, they're all working together to bring this country down, Jim. They're not our friends. That Pope, it's a day that when he died, it was a good day in my book. And I'm sorry for pissing off Catholics. But my mom used to be a Catholic nun. My mom used to be a Catholic nun, and I'm glad she left because I wouldn't exist today if she stayed in that.
Have you a final thought today? A final thought?
Well, God bless Pete Hegseth. He's getting a lot of heat. But you know what? He's trying to fix the military that's woke, that's got, unfortunately, women in military positions that should be not in combat, that should not be forcing men into war when they can't fight themselves or carry a man on their back. They just can't do certain things that a man can do. They should not be in combat. That's just one thing Pete's fighting that. He's fighting these snitches that are turning them in for signal communication chat. He's fighting all these moles that are put in there, and he's got a lot of work, man.
Yeah, I have the impression that Hegseth, along with Vice President Vance and Director of National Intel Gabbard, are opposed to attacking Iran, which is all to the good. I mean, I would have thought Hegseth was on the other side, but it appears he thinks it's a bad idea. And for a certainty, it's a very bad idea. JP, thanks.
It's extremely bad. Take care.
Good one. Gabriel from Arkansas. Welcome back, Gabriel. Your thoughts?
Thank you.
Gabriel, yes.
I read the 9/11 Commission report way back when, and I mean, it was more of a book than a report. It was almost 600 pages. It was 592 pages, and I noticed that most of the report was about Al-Qaeda in Africa, and only a small, very, very small fraction of the book talked about Al-Qaeda in the U.S. or the Middle East, which just two things that shocked me was the amount of information, just the size of the book for a report, and then the fact that out of all that information, I mean, 90-something% of it had to be about Al-Qaeda in Africa.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great point you're making, Gabriel. Tell me more.
The only other thing I can really add right now to that, because it's been so long since I've read the book, to be honest with you, I do remember, though, that all they were talking about throughout the whole thing with Al-Qaeda in Africa, it was all about the genocide that was being done against ethnic cleansing, genocide, and the book was arguing that it was Muslims doing it. Now, whether that was true or whether it was being used to argue to be hateful against a certain race or a certain religion, I don't know. But that I did notice, though, that that's what the book pretty much talked about and argued about. And I was just sitting there as I read it. I was shocked. I'm like, whoa, I thought that this was a report about 9/11. That was just my impression as I sat there reading it. I'm like, whoa, we're going way off here, and it has nothing to do with 9/11.
Yeah, it was just filler to make it look like they've done an impressive study, and just because of the size, most people would be intimidated, but you're making excellent points, Gabriel. Excellent. It was a fraud. It was a cover. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, just going to say it seemed like filler that I wanted to take with a grain of salt.
Sure.
Although I do believe that those atrocities were happening and probably still are in Africa, and they do need to be addressed and corrected. The narrative that's being pushed and the people that they blame it on, that needs to be looked at and questioned.
Yes. Good points. Further final thoughts?
You mentioned a blog, Jim the Conspiracy Guy. What website is that on?
That's on mine, jameshfetzer.org. It's I had for I don't know, a year and a half, maybe, an extra blog. Maybe it was less, actually. I think it may have been more like from something like March through November. I had a blog called JimTheConspiracyGuy.com, and I did 85 shows during that time. No, 65. And you can find all 65 on the blog under that heading. So if you go to jamesatretzer.org or go to the 65 shows, you'll be able to find them, including my critique of the moon landing, of the Holocaust, about COVID, and a whole lot more. I mean, it's a veritable bonanza on a single page, Gabriel. I think you'd really like it.
Thank you for explaining that, because you mention that often in passing, but haven't really explained how we can find that. So
Sure.
I'm sure that your audience is really, they're really going to like that. Before I go, I want to give a final thought, if I can. I just wanted to hold your feet to the fire a little here for a second, but don't worry, I still love you. Yesterday I argued that God or an intelligent creator can be proven using mathematical probability when you consider how well designed the human being and the world around him are, as opposed to everything being the result of a random explosion or random processes. And Professor, you responded with a hodgepodge of technical terms and ideas in a way that you really don't normally even talk on Authentic News, basically admitting we came from a creative intelligence, but you're more or less trying to explain away that creative intelligence as the laws of nature, or whatever you were saying. Am I correct?
No, you're mistaken. There's nothing hodgepodge about it. I have published 2 books about evolution. What I'm talking about is you're adopting a simple version of Darwin's theory, which has long since been superseded. I was pointing out that there are 8 different causal mechanisms of evolution, not just genetic mutation and natural selection. So what you called a hodgepodge was, in fact, an enumeration of the causal mechanisms that drive evolution. And the greater the complexity, the more of the mechanisms that are required to explain the emergence of more complex phenomena. And 4 of them have to do with the production of genetic diversity, so that the mechanisms of selection have greater choices in terms of which combination of DNA and so forth survives to reproduce. And the 4 mechanisms of genetic diversity are genetic mutation, but also sexual selection, but also what's known as genetic drift. This is when a subpopulation is isolated from other populations and has to respond to different environmental conditions for its survival, which spawns the genetic diversity. And then, of course, genetic engineering. That's what we have with the mRNA vax. They're actually manipulating our genes in ways that are very bad. Then you have the 4 mechanisms of selection that operate on the genetic diversity that is thereby produced, which include natural selection. That's a competition between conspecifics or members of the same species to see which of them survive to reproduce. Sexual selection. What are the attributes of males, for example, that attract females, or of females that attract males for sexual reproduction? Group selection. How does it matter how a group is organized in order to promote its survival and reproduction? It can be illustrated by the difference between an infantry platoon and one that has a machine gun with it to accompany it, or a random member of players in a basketball team. And then finally, we have artificial selection, whereby, for example, horse breeders will breed a specific stallion with a specific mare for a lot of money in order to produce a promising offspring for, say, thoroughbred racing. There's nothing hodgepodgey about it. It's simply an area where you do not know as much as you think you know, Gabriel. I just say, pick up. And then the book, if you have an opportunity, it's entitled The Evolution of Intelligence. And a second is called Render Unto Darwin, which is about the Christian Right's attack on the sciences I think you'd find both of them valuable. So if you get the opportunity, Gabriel, but I'm glad for you to bring it back up. I don't have any problem with raising criticisms or questions. In fact, I like it. Good call. Keith,
Thank you.
You got it. Keith in Montana. Keith, always glad to hear from you, my friend. Go ahead. Keith. Did we lose Keith? Let's go to James in Vancouver. Okay. Keith, are you there, my friend?
There we go.
All right, go ahead, Keith.
All right. First
I'll
of all,
keep
Jim,
you over the break. I'll keep you over the break. Go ahead.
all right, sounds good. First of all, Israel doesn't have a constitution. You should remember that. The other thing I called about, did you catch Senator Ron Johnson when he was talking about the Senate, what do they call that? Preservation of all records. It's a subpoena. And they're deleting everything related to COVID. If you recall, when Blinken was before Senator Rand Paul, and he had asked for the unclassified report on the origins of COVID, Senator Rand Paul was handed 2 stacks of papers, which totaled over 500 papers. They were all fully redacted. Unclassified report. Yeah. We have the USAID report through the Senate that also showed to the Wuhan lab that was on record. This goes in line with the July 2019 lab leak over there at Fort Detrick there. But anyway, what I'm getting at is the American people have been extorted for so long. I just tweeted here that $2.9 trillion has been extorted from the Social Security. When Pastor Hagee requested and received money of so many millions of dollars to export Jews from Ukraine, they started receiving Social Security. Then we see that the immigrants are receiving Social Security. I don't know if Americans are ever going to get pissed off about this or not there, but when you work decades, work decades, slaving for these corporations, I can't believe it. You work decades, and then you're given this paltry fund like that, and then you got people that come into this country, and though I believe in legal immigration, but when it's forced, remember, Biden brought in 800,000 immigrants from Venezuela. Okay, that's under the bridge, but Americans paid for that, the plane tickets, all this stuff like that, the special phones, the apps, all this stuff, And now Trump is exporting all these, and Americans are paying for this. I don't think Americans realize this. It's basically time for revolution, really. But all these wars, they've not benefited us. And even like, speaking about Africa, Rwanda, the genocide. Well, Israel bragged about selling all the arms there. Up in Miramar, Israel brags about selling all the arms. All the files will remain top secret and stuff, But the point is, though, is if you look at all these wars and stuff, what they're doing is they're taking the 18 to 35-year-old men, basically, that are procreative, and this is all part of the depopulation agenda. It's like with you in Vietnam there, James. Communists, Vietnam's still communist today. America's biggest trading partner is China. They're still communist. But, the problem is people don't select their governments. They're there. They're just born into them.
Yeah. Keith, hang on. I'm carrying you over. Keith, go ahead. Join more.
All right. So the other thing I want to talk about was this credit default swaps there. This is where even Trump noticed that down in California, that in between the housing lenders and stuff like that, that insurance companies were working with the lenders to make sure that people couldn't buy insurance in these high risk areas. And when I did my show on perception management, I outlined a detail there where the lobbyists for the insurance companies made sure that they couldn't buy flood insurance in certain areas. And, of course, in the Army Corps of Engineers busted the levees there in 10,000. Americans had to pay for all that stuff. The same with the banking bailouts. Anyone can get on the Internet and look at banking scandals. The list goes back so many decades, and every country gets into a massive crisis like that. What they do, they deregulate banking more to even screw us more like that, you know. Meanwhile, they run all these stupid wars that have no benefit for America whatsoever. The only thing that Americans have got for nearly $37 trillion is rainbow-painted sidewalks and, of course, jaywalking laws to make sure that you have to cross through this valley of fire or whatever it is like that, you know. But like I said, you would think Americans would get tired of this. They're trying to kill us through the bioengineering, genetics, and all this stuff. And the problem is politicians, because of lobbyists, they don't work for the American people. There's no way, like I say, any politician you want, like AOC, she's worth $20 million. Remember, she was a bartender before, couldn't afford stuff like that. They're rich. They're not working for us. It's time to get rid of them.
Yeah. Good, Keith. Final thought?
Oh, and thanks for showing up. Yeah, thanks for showing up on the Two Mike Show.
Yeah. Hey, that was fun. That was fun, Keith. I enjoyed that. I'd be glad to do it again. Glad to do it again.
Good, James.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Francis.
Yeah, bye.
Francis, join a conversation, Francis. Go for it.
Well, young man, one thing I have to admit is rather interesting that it's 2.5, might as well say 3 decades before actually wanting to do anything politically speaking about investigating the World Trade Center bombing and so forth. It's like, you got to be kidding me. But I have to applaud the politician that wants to do that. I don't recall what their name was that you mentioned about earlier. But if they're really legit, then, wow, that will certainly open a can of worms as far as other things are concerned. Well, you got the picture. But as far as the genetic things, I thought what you described as far as evolution is concerned, genetically speaking, and how people do their choosing, how animals do their choosing, and so forth, was fascinating. And I appreciate the fact you went over that with Gabriel, for that matter, because, like, frankly, this day and time with genetic engineering, as you well know, I actually had a conversation with a fraternity brother of my husband's about that and how it should not be in society to begin with. And he said, well, hey, Mother Nature does it all the time. That's true, except for one difference. Mother Nature does not wear a lab coat and doesn't do it with a syringe. So you do the math. There's a reason why things are genetically engineering out in nature as it does, because there are certain strengths that various plants, various animals look for, energetically speaking, and so forth. And humanity, scientifically speaking, hasn't been able to figure that part out. They could if they really wanted to, but they don't care to, as long as they can make money off of it, especially of their mutations and so forth. And so that's another pothole I'll leave you wondering about, but this ain't time, go figure. And as for the scenario with Palestinians, there was a video I came across about how the Christian faith Palestinians are being attacked, harassed, and so forth and so on. And I can comprehend why that is, because when you have Zionists over in Israel trying to annihilate them and all that, I can see why they have a problem. Now, it's interesting that trying to turn their homeland into beachfront property is absurd, outrageous, and reprehensible, because they deserve to live just as much as anybody else does for that instance. And so, of course, then again, Palestinians of any other faith or whatever, they have just as much right to live too. I don't care what your religion is, as long as it's based on spiritual growth, which you get from healing of a physical nature, and thus elevate your spirit as a result, then that's a religion I can follow. If it's one that's dealing with greed, hate, fear, no, that is not a religion. That is a cult. I guess you could probably call it that, because it brings about the downfall of the members themselves that are involved in that. It does nothing for the spirit. So,
Good,
with that,
good,
have a great
good
week.
call, Francis. Thank you. A good call. We'll be right back.
Eleanor Rigby picks up the rice in the church where a wedding has been. Lives in a dream, waits at the window, wearing the face that she keeps in a jar by the door. Nothing you can sing that can't be sung. Nothing you can say, but you can learn how to play the game. It's easy.
James from Vancouver. Welcome back, James. Join the conversation.
Yes. I studied my genetics at a private institute, which is not on the grid.
Yeah.
By the way, so looking at research into the Pope Francis issue, I have a headline from the Catholic News Agency dated January 16, 2024, and it reads, for the fifth consecutive year, the joint retreat between the Holy Father and the Roman Curia has been canceled. 5 years straight, this guy couldn't even talk to the Curia. So,
Bad.
we got organizational issues. Back to you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Fascinating.
think they got sick of his trendy wokeism and dubious morality, and they said, that's enough of that. And so, like I said, they punched his ticket Monday morning. Back to you.
Yeah. No, I'm listening. James, give us more. Give us more.
Well, there's several more headlines like this, and it's interesting. Yesterday, I did a radio show, and I was trying to talk about the dicasteries in the Curia. There's about 16 of them. And these dicasteries are the management of the Roman Catholic Church, their situation. There's a list. So, like Secretariat of State, dicastery for evangelization, dicastery for the doctrine of the faith, dicastery for the service of charity, dicastery for the Eastern churches, and it goes on and on. Well, while I was trying to do my dissertation on the radio, all of my windows on dicasteries in the Curia were canceled. Any other windows that I had open I could refer to, but the whoever is running this internet thing will not let me into my own research. Today I made sure to have it open.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
What the hell was going on there, James? What was going on there?
Well, like I said, I've got about 300 windows open all the time to refer back to things I've looked at, right? And I had these, I was going to do this show, and I decided to do some research into my my ideas on what happened in the Roman Catholic Church. So I look up the Curia, and I hit on the dicasteries. And I figured this is a good topic to tell the world about. And by that time, I had a couple callers. I was explaining to them, and then I try to go back to these windows, and they just wouldn't open. And there were other windows that would open, but not the dicasteries, not the Curia, nothing to do with what I was talking about. So I thought that was interesting.
Yes, I agree.
So, well, look at, that's basically what I have for now. I think there was something else I wanted to mention, but it's left me. So I'll try to get back
Well,
to
James,
you when I know more. How's that?
Yeah,
James,
James, if it comes back, call on back.
All right.
Call on back. Thank you, James. Renee, join the conversation, girl. What's up? Renee.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. There's a viral clip going around of this Chinese influencer really telling the truth. I know Jimmy Dore played it and Judge Napolitano played it. It was 5 days ago. It's a 4-minute 49. He's on with that guy, that other smart professor guy. The name you really need. This with Napolitano and this professor. It's like a 5-minute clip, but the part he plays is only like 1.5 minutes long, and he really nails it. Okay, telling us who the problem is, and you know how it's called. You let oligarchs feed you lies while they made you fat, poor, and addicted, okay? There's 1.5 minutes in there. You really need to play that on air because this little Chinese influencer nails it. You know, people always want to talk about the boogeyman somewhere else. Well, really our problem is internally. You know, whenever I hear somebody go on about the commie boogeyman, it drives me crazy. The thing is, China, Vietnam, Cuba, they haven't invaded anybody. Have they? You know, like Wesley Clark told us, did those commie nations invade the Middle East and try to take down 7 countries in 5 years, as Wesley Clark was saying? No, that would be the Anglo-American Empire with Britain, America, and Israel trying to conquer. This has been going on trying to take over the Middle East. That's what this is really about, them conquering the Middle East.
Yeah.
All this war, and the commies have not done a damn thing. If we'd been running our country closer to where China has been doing, where they've been reinvesting their money to build up their own country, to make friends by helping them build bridges in other countries instead of bombing everything. So the thing is, I just don't fall for the whole commie boogeyman thing that got a lot of men killed in Vietnam uselessly. And like you said earlier, now they're a good trading partner. Are they causing any problems for us? No, they're trading. It's all BS. But boy, that it just goes to show the power of that early programming. The thing is, the problem is, can you imagine if some of these other nations says, yeah, you know that America and their capitalism, they're evil. You know, we got to do something about that. Let's go invade them. We would be horrified, although God knows our capitalism has caused a lot of heartache and misery for other people around the world. If we would just remember what Smedley Darlington Butler told us years ago about him being a gangster of capitalism on 3 continents. And that's another thing I find amazing, the way, we got to get them gang members and, them criminals, we got to get them out of the country. This country is the biggest gangster gang, but it's with a flag, okay, with a flag. They don't mark it with spray cans. We have a flag that has gone around the world killing and stealing and doing all sorts of evil in so many countries. Our meddling in South America is a lot of what has caused those people to flee, to have to come over here in the first place. I know Keith Rogers understands that. I like that guy. He's got sense on his. He's got a lot of sense. Thing is, a lot of the problems around the world are our causing because we are such a warrior nation with our military-industrial complex. We need conflict because it generates money for our military-industrial complex. They go broke if there's peace. So the thing is, our own nation causes the trouble to generate chaos and conflict, to generate money for our war machine. So the thing is, it's not the commies that are doing it. And like I say, in this 1.5 minutes, this little Chinese influencer, you really need to play this clip on your show, okay? You can get it at Judge Napolitano's site, and because this little guy can see, this little guy in a minute and a half can see what the problem is, that most Americans have been blinded by all their propaganda, and they cannot see it because our country always is trying to point us at an enemy on the outside, so we don't realize our biggest enemy is on the inside.
Very good, Renee. Very nice, very, very nice. Final thought?
Well, like I say, bankers, like I say, and people that kick down at poor people. Really, I know personally, unfortunately, white-collar criminals in suits can steal more from you with a pen than a person can with a gun. And the thing is, it's the white-collar criminals, people in banking and Wall Street and government. It's the people at the top. Middle class and upper classes steal way more, and we need to punch up instead of kick down.
Yeah, good. Renee, thank you. Very, very nice. Let's see, Dan in Washington, join the conversation. Dan.
Hey, thanks. I'd second what Renee said. JP's calls, usually he's got good information, but the whole commie thing, it's just nonsense. The John Birch Society was subverted and taken over, basically by Jews. And JP just needs to learn to say the word Jew. You know, it's not the Khazarian Mafia. It's not commies. And the John Birch Society was, basically for like 30 years spread all this anti-commie bullcrap because they were controlled by Jews, And the guy that founded the John Birch Society actually said that. His name was Oliver. What was it, Revel P. Oliver? And he wrote a whole book about it, how they took over the John Birch Society. But, anyway, and the Catholic Church as well. If you look at who was behind the Vatican II Council, I don't think the Catholic Church had any power really at all after World War II. I think we need to look at what happened to Italy when American forces went in there. And I think the CIA has been running the Catholic Church, basically. And I think Obama and Hillary Clinton actually installed that Pope. The Black Pope, the Francis. So
very interesting. Anyway, yes, interesting idea. Dan.
Hey, real quick, I saw a good show. Have you heard of thorium? But a lot of these, I mostly called about that.
Tell us.
Some power plant. It's basically they can make nuclear power out of this thorium stuff, and China has 60,000 years of cheap energy. And it's actually, it was developed in America, and
Dan, I kind of lost you. Good stuff. Susie in Arizona, join the conversation. Susie.
Hi, I was calling in about your comments earlier today on the other show that you're on, and you're talking about Trump talking about with a Christian, not they need to vote, never need to vote again. That comes from Curtis Yarvon and his monarch idea.
What do you take that to mean? What's the idea there?
Well, several of people in Trump's administration are followers of Curtis Yarvon, Y-A-R-V-I-N, idea of a monarchy.
A United States monarchy.
Yes.
A monarchy here in the U.S.
Yes, and that includes J.D. Vance.
Yeah, but that would have to, you'd have to junk the Constitution. No one's prepared to do that.
Yes, but that's the idea. Get rid of the Constitution and have a monarchy.
Incredibly stupid idea, don't you agree?
Well, whether I agree or not doesn't matter. You know, it's what they're doing.
And how do you see them do? How do you see that happening?
I see it happening with what he's doing with the executive orders, and this is what Jarvan has pushed. It is start with like going in with executive orders, which Trump has done from the start, going in with a massive amount of executive orders, acting like a monarchy. You take over, and he even talked with in 2020 or 21 or 22 with Michael Anton, who was at Claremont Institute, in an interview, a podcast interview about this, and even suggested that Musk do what Musk is doing with Doge, and he calls it rage, retire all government employees, and his idea is that Musk is basically the emperor, but the idea is that there is somebody at the top who is an emperor, a monarch, and then underneath them are all the oligarchies, all of the technocrats. And Jarvan is a technocrat out of San Francisco, and the idea is to have all of these things happening as they are under the Trump administration that's happening now. It's not an accident. It's all by design. And that's why Trump had said, and I feared when Trump said that in that talk, I feared that he was going towards the Jarvan thing. And I guess, I hate to say, but my hunches
We'll have to return to this topic, Susie. I'm very glad you brought it up. You got a final thought?
Yeah, just watch out for Curtis Jarvan. He has a Substack called Gray Mirror, and he talks about it in that Substack. Okay, good.
Susie, I'm real pleased you brought this up. Chris in Alabama, join the conversation. Chris.
Hey, Jim. I'm calling about Victor Hugo. Do you mind if I say a few words?
Please, go ahead.
Okay, I was a Marine a long time ago, enlisted Marine. I became an Air Force officer, flew C-130. My son went to Annapolis and graduated. He's an aviator now. And I hear Victor saying this crazy stuff, the way he talks. For one, midshipmen are not saluted by enlisted people. If they're saluted, they're saluted by another midshipman while they're playing soldier in the academy. He washed out after his first year. You know, we used to talk about guys that would make up stories about how they washed out of pilot training and stuff, and we call them fallen angel stories. And then they make up these stories like weird stuff. And him saying that a first-year midshipman is being told to go home and kill his mother to prove himself is just insane, all right?
Yes.
It's insane that they would ever do that. There's so many people out here that don't know anything about how things work. They think all veterans are Masons. They think all police officers are Masons. They think all this nefarious stuff, like every guy that gets a GD-214 is in on some government conspiracy. And Victor could sell this stuff to the midwits that he talks to.
Yeah.
But it's ultimately BS. I'd like to see that DD-214 and see how he was separated, why he was separated. Maybe he went to somebody and said, I was a whistleblower. This is why I left. No, he blew the best opportunity he ever had in his life. And he talked, I heard him say stuff like, they wanted you to get up and march and stand for inspection. What did you think before you got that commission, before you went to your congressman to get that commission? What did you think was going on there? But he blew the best opportunity of his life. That's why he's some old man off somewhere, probably not in Tbilisi, Georgia, because why didn't he just go outside and show a picture? Why didn't he go out there when the little uprising, the protests, when they're firing fireworks? Why didn't he go out in the street out there and go film it and show us what's going on in Georgia? He didn't show that. No, he could be in West Virginia where rents are cheap or somewhere in Florida. We don't know.
I think in Miami. I think he's in Miami, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a PI, but I'm sure a PI could somehow track him down. Anyways, that's my 2 cents. He's a blowhard. The difference between you and him, you're an honorable man. I don't agree with you all the time, Jim, on a lot of stuff. Fundamentally, I see you as an honorable man. I see him as a dishonorable man, just like him showing those emails that were given to him in confidence, and then he goes and puts it out there like he's like a scorned woman. And then the way he went after Brian after that show, he's a scorned woman, and he's a bitch. That's all he is. Anyways, that's my 2 cents, Jim. Thank you.
Chris, that's wonderful. I think you veiled him. You have seen through this POS. I tell you, Chris, I like that call. Thank you for that. You welcome back anytime. Let's see. John in Michigan. John, we don't have a lot of time. Go ahead.
Hello, Jim. Hey, I wanted to ask you about 9/11, and do you remember that on Building 7, didn't they say Building 7 was Rudy Giuliani's command center?
Yeah, he had 2 floors, command and control center that had their own air and water supply.
Now, why would you be in there if that building is burning? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, he didn't go in there. He didn't go. So he knew it was going to be brought down. Barry Jennings went. He was inside. He found half-eaten sandwiches, still steaming cups of coffee. He felt himself stepping over dead people. He heard explosions while he was inside. When he came out and gave interviews, you may or may not have noticed, but when they gave the 9/11 report, they excluded. They didn't even talk about Building 7. So he did a whole separate report suggesting the very modest fires that had been responsible was absolute horseshit. It wasn't scientific, technically, in any way, fashion, even remotely plausible. But guess what? Like a day or 2 before they released the report, Barry Jennings died. So he couldn't contradict it based upon his own personal experience. Building 7 is an Achilles heel of 9/11, no doubt. But so are the plane crash sites. Go ahead.
Now, that building, it's my contention that building was supposed to come down with the rest of them with all the hell-breaking moves. Correct?
Well, maybe. I'll just tell you, it was erected over 2 enormous electrical generators. It was designed to never collapse. For example, in the Twin Towers, the major beams of steel were hollowed out in the center. They're nearly as strong. But in Building 7, they were not hollowed out in the center. That may have been the most robust building ever erected by the hand of man. And, of course, Larry Silverstein gave the signal to take it down, pull it, meaning bring down by controlled demolition, which couldn't have been done unless it had been primed, I mean, I'm telling you, that's so bad. And it's good that Ron Johnson is talking about it. I'm a huge fan of this guy.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
But they're going to make him look like a kook, though. You know what I mean? They're already...
If I have anything to do with it, they won't be able to get away with it. I mean, look, we got so much evidence, but the government does want to cover it up, just like they have with JFK, just like they have with the moon landings. There's so much fraud out there. Chris, you're absolutely right. There is so much. John, there's so much fraud out there. Give us a final thought.
Hey Jim, just one more thing on Building 7. Do you think that they sent in more people into there to rewire something that went wrong? Because it didn't fall out of the initial collapse?
I think Building 7 was used as a command for the rest of the destruction of the World Trade Center, so it came down last. But it was 7 hours after the destruction of the North Tower. I mean, and Jane Stanley for the BBC was reporting it had come down at already 3:55 or so when it wouldn't happen until, 4:55, but it didn't happen until 5:20. So, yeah. I mean, the whole thing was a sham. 9/11 is just disgusting. I encourage everyone, check out my 9/11 special if you want to get a handle on what's going on there. John, thank you. Thank you very much. Hey, Dave in the Thumb, you want to squeeze in a word, Dave in the Thumb?
Yes, sir. Thanks, Jim. So for those callers that don't know about the Bolshevik Revolution and the Armenian genocide, the Jews, okay, they called themselves the Young Turks in about 1915 and went and murdered the Armenian white Christians. And then they called themselves the Bolsheviks, and they murdered 60 million white Christian Russians. So don't give me this crap that the Birchers invented communism. The Jews invented communism. I don't care about the Khazarians and all that other. That's another Jew lie that they invented in July, probably. And you know what? all bankers, all Jews aren't bankers, but all bankers are Jews. That's for our gal, ring-a-ding-ding. So, you know what? The Birchers did not invent Karl Marx. They didn't invent Stalin, Lenin, Trotsky.
Yes. Dave, thank you. Bill in Kentucky, Tom in Utah. Please call in tomorrow. I'll get you on early. Meanwhile, spend as much time as you can with your family, your friends, and people you love and care about. We don't know how much time we have left. Use it wisely. Meanwhile, support RBN and come back and talk with me tomorrow.
Get More Tank will save you money every month on gas. I'm Dave Von Kleist, and I noticed increased performance after my first tank of gas.